Hello YouTube, this is CN Maritime History here, back down for another video. And today we are continuing the PT-109 story. But before I get to that, I want to share my video schedule for the next few days, weeks or so. So I'm going to do PT-109 Part 2, just what I'm doing right now. Then probably Part 3. Then the USS Thresher. Then the K-141 Kursk. And the 2000 incident, and the 2000 year 2000 incident that followed. What else? I might do Deepwater Horizon, it's possible. But, I will definitely, within, like, next 2 weeks or so, do, USS Laffey. I have some pictures that I want to show you guys, so I'll put them in the video. I already actually have it set up, almost, so, yeah, my video schedule's kind of booked for the next, like, 3 or 4 weeks or so, but, let me know if you guys have any video suggestions. They are always welcome. I run out of ideas constantly. But please, let me know if you have any suggestions. Okay, let's start the video. Lieutenant Brantingham on PT-159, leader of Kennedy's division, and originally stationed near Kennedy, first saw radar blips indicating the southbound destroyers just arriving on the scene, and fired his torpedoes from about a mile away. As he advanced, he did not radio Kennedy's 109 to follow, leaving Kennedy and his crew behind in the darkness. All of Brantingham's torpedoes missed the destroyers, and his torpedo tubes caused a small fire, requiring Lieutenant Libano's PT, also in Kennedy's division, to swing in front of Brantingham's PT to block the light emitting from his burning torpedo tubes, as they could have given away the location of the destroyers. Libano's 157 fired 2 more torpedoes that failed to hit their target as well, then both boats laid smoke from their smoke generator and zigzagged away to avoid detection. No signal of the destroyer's presence was ever radioed or received by Kennedy's 109, or the other boat in the division, and skippers Brantingham and Libano headed blindly west to Gizo Island and away from the destroyers in Kennedy's 109. Many of the torpedoes that were fired exploded prematurely or ran at the wrong depth. The odds that a Mark 8 torpedo admitted to the destroyer would explode was less than 50% due to faulty calibration of the detonators, a problem that was not known nor corrected by the Navy until later in the war. A few other PTs, including the leader of Division 8 at the south of Kennedy, intercepted destroyers on their southbound route close to Columbangara, but were unable to hit any with torpedoes. The boats were radioed by Warfield to return when their torpedoes were expended or out. But the 4 boats of radar fired their torpedoes first and were ordered to return to base. Commander Warfield's concept of sending orders to the PTs in darkness by radio from 40 miles away, and in final view of the battle, was inefficient at best. The radar sets the 4 boats carried were relatively primitive and sometimes malfunctioned. When the 4 boats with radar left the scene of the battle, the remaining boats, including PT-109, were deprived of the ability to determine the location or approach of the oncoming destroyers, and were not notified that other boats had already engaged the enemy. Late in the night, Kennedy's 109 and 2 accompanying PTs became the last to sight the Japanese destroyers returning on their northern route to Rabaul, New Guinea. After they had completed dropping their supplies and troops at 1:45 a.m. on the southern tip of Columbangara. The official Navy account of the incident listed the radio communications as good, but PT commanders were also told to maintain radio silence until informed of enemy sightings, causing many commanders to turn off their radios or not closely monitor the radio traffic, including Kennedy. August 2nd, collision with the Amagiri. This is Amagiri in the year 1930. By 2 a.m. on the 2nd of August 1943, as the battle neared its end, PT-109, PT-162, and PT-169 were ordered to continue patrolling the area on orders previously radioed from Commander Warfield. The night was cloudy and moonless. And fog had set amidst the remaining PTs. Kennedy's boat was idling on one engine to avoid the detection of her phosphorescent, I think I said that right, wake by Japanese aircraft when the crew realized they were in the path of the Japanese destroyer Amagiri, which was heading north to Rabaul from Vila Plantation, Columbangara, after offloading supplies and 902 soldiers. Contemporary accounts of the incident, particularly the work of Mark Doyle, do not often find Kennedy at fault for the collision. The lack of speed and maneuverability caused by the idling engines of the 109 put the ship at risk from passing destroyers, but Kennedy had not been warned by radio of destroyers in the area. Kennedy believed the firing he had heard was from shore batteries on Columbangara, not destroyers, and that he could best avoid detection by enemy seaplanes by idling his engines and reducing his wake. Kennedy said he attempted to turn PT-109 to fire a torpedo, and if Ensign George nicknamed Barney Ross, fired the newly installed 37mm anti-tank gun from the bow, which replaced the life raft, which, to be honest, would have come in handy a few hours later, at the oncoming northbound destroyer Amagiri. Ross lifted the shell, but did not have time to load it into the closed breech of the weapon that Kennedy hoped might deter the oncoming vessel. Amagiri was traveling at a relatively high speed of between 23 and 40 knots, which, in retrospect, is between 26 and 46 miles per hour, in order to reach harbor by dawn when Allied air patrols were likely to appear. Kennedy and his crew had less than 10 seconds to get the engines up to speed and evade the oncoming destroyer, which was advancing without running lights. But the PT boat was run down and severed between Kolombangara and Gizo Island. The 109 was struck on her starboard side at a 20-degree angle, shearing off a piece of the boat. Conflicting statements have been made as to whether the destroyer captain had spotted and steered towards the 109 with the intention of ramming her, or tried to avoid her at the last minute. Most contemporary authors write that the Amagiri's captain intentionally steered to collide with the 109. Amagiri's captain, Lieutenant Commander Kohei Hanami, later admitted it himself, and also stated the 109 was traveling at a steady pace in their direction. When PT-109 was cut into around 2:27 a.m. in the morning, a fireball of exploding aviation fuel 100 feet high announced the collision, and caused the seas surrounding the ship to flame. Seaman Andrew Jackson Kirksey and Harold William Marney were killed instantly, and 2 other members of the crew were badly injured and burned when they were thrown into the flaming seas surrounding the boat. For such a catastrophic collision, explosion, and fire, there were few men lost when contrasted to the losses on other PT boats hit by shell fire. PT-109 was gravely damaged, with watertight compartments keeping only the forward hull afloat in a sea of flames. PT-169, closest to Kennedy's craft, launched 2 torpedoes that missed the destroyer, and PT-162's torpedoes failed to fire at all. Both boats then turned away from the scene of the action and returned to base without checking for survivors from PT-109. There had been no procedure outlined by Commander Warfield of how to search for survivors or what the PT flotilla should do in case a ship was lost. In the words of Captain Robert Bulkley, naval historian, this was perhaps the most confused and least effectively executed action the PTs have been in. 8 PTs fired 30 torpedoes. The only confirmed results were the loss of PT-109 and damage to the Japanese destroyer Amagiri from striking the 109. Survival. Swim to Plum Pudding Island, August the 2nd. This island was, if you look it up today, you'll see it's now called Kennedy Island, but that is because of its significance in the 109 incident. Kennedy was able to rescue MM1 Patrick McMahon, hope I not pronounced that right, the crew member with the most severe wounds, which included burns that covered 70% of his body and brought him to the floating bow. Kennedy also rescued Starkey and Harris. They were both members on board PT-109, bringing them both to the bow. On instructions from Kennedy, the 11 survivors thrown from the 109 first regrouped and then, hoping for rescue, clung to the bow section for 12 hours as it drifted slowly south. About 1 p.m. on August the 2nd, it was apparent that the hull was taking on water and would soon sink, so the men decided to swim for land, parting around 1:30 p.m. As there were Japanese camps on all the nearby large islands, including Kolombangara, Kolombangara, which was the closest, they chose the tiny deserted Plum Pudding Island, southwest of where the bow section had drifted, and they placed their lanterns, shoes, and non-swimmers on one of the timbers that had been used as a gun mount, and began kicking them together to propel it. Kennedy, who had been on the Harvard University swim team, used the life jacket strap clenched between his teeth to tow McMahon. It took 4 hours to swim to the island, 3.5 miles away, which they reached without encountering sharks or crocodiles. Additional swims, 2nd, 4th, and 5th August. Plum Pudding Island was only 100 yards in diameter, with no food or water. The exhausted crew dragged themselves behind the tree line to hide from passing Japanese barges. The night of August the 2nd, Kennedy swam 2 miles the Ferguson Passage to attempt to hail a passing American PT boat. On the 4th of August, he and Lenny Thom assisted his injured and hungry crew on a demanding swim 3.75 miles south to Olasana Island, which was visible to all from Plum Pudding Island. They swam against a strong current, and once again, Kennedy towed McMahon by his life vest. They were pleased to discover Olasana had ripe coconuts, though there was still no fresh water. Okay, I just looked at the time and I realized that we are approaching the 10-minute mark. Now, I know what I had said, that I was going to make videos 10 minutes, but we're almost to the, rescue part, so I think I'm going to push through here and make the longer video. On the following day, George Ross, and Kennedy swam for 1 hour to Nauru Island, visible at an additional distance of 0.5 miles southeast, in search of help and food, and because it was closer to Ferguson Passage, where Kennedy might see or swim to a passing PT boat on patrol. Kennedy and Ross found a small canoe, packages of crackers and candy, and a 50-gallon drum of drinkable water left by the Japanese, which Kennedy paddled back to Olasana in the acquired canoe to provide his crew. It was then that Kennedy first spoke to native, I hope I don't mispronounce this, Melanesian coast watchers Biyuku Gasa and Aroni Kumana on Olasana Island. Months earlier, Kennedy had learned a smattering of the English used by the coast watchers, but I don't know what smattering means. I guess that means, like, not much, maybe? By speaking with a native boy, the two coast watchers had finally been convinced by Ensign Thom that the crew were from the lost 109. When Thom asked Gasa if he knew John Kari, and Gasa replied that he worked with them. Realizing they were with Americans, the coast watchers brought a few yams, vegetables, and cigarettes from their dugout canoe and vowed to help the starving crew, but it would take 2 more days for a full rescue. The rescue of PT-109 was a long process, largely achieved by the work of native Solomon Island scouts who first located Kennedy and his crew. The scouts were sent by Sub-Lieutenant Reg Evans, an Australian coast watcher who had seen the 109 explode from a secret observation site. I chose this picture of this plane because this is the exact type of plane that was used. Not the same plane, but it's the exact type of plane that was used to search the sinking site. The explosion and resulting fireball on the early morning of August 2nd was spotted by Evans, who manned a secret observation post at the top of the Mount Vivi volcano on Holland Bangara, where more than 10,000 Japanese troops were garrisoned below on the southeast portion of the mountain. The Navy and its squadron of PT boats held a memorial service for the crew of PT-109 after reports were made of the large explosion, but Commander Warfield, to his credit, ordered an aerial search by Royal New Zealand Air Force P-40 fighters that spotted a few remains of the wreck, but not the crew who had already swum to safety. So this is a P-40. I think it's a Warhawk when I looked it up. I think that's what its name was. Evans had been the first to dispatch Islander scouts, Gasa and Kumana, in the dugout canoe late on 5th August to look for possible survivors. After decoding radio broadcasts of the explosion he witnessed was from the lost PT-109. Gasa and Kumana had been trained by the British and Australians in search and detection, and were willing to sacrifice their lives as part of the duty to the British and American troops. Native coast watchers were used because they could avoid detection by Japanese ships and aircraft, and if spotted would probably be taken for native fishermen. Before they were rescued by the scouts on August 8th, Kennedy and his men survived for 6 days on plum pudding and then Olasana Island. They had eaten only a few ripe coconuts, rainwater caught on leaves, and small amounts of fresh water, and Japanese cookies Kennedy had taken from Nauru Island. By chance, Gasa and Kumana stopped by Nauru to investigate a Japanese wreck, from which they salvaged fuel and food. They first fled by canoe from Kennedy, who, with his sunburned beard and disheveled clothing, appeared to them to be a Japanese soldier. When they later arrived on Olasana, they pointed their Tommy guns at the rest of the crew, since the only non-Japanese people they expected to find were Japanese with whom they cannot communicate. So I'm going to stop here, and then I will record my third part later on today. Bye.